It's the one thing that keeps people from following dreams, from being daring, and leading bold, audacious lives. It's the one thing that if you can conquer, you have the potential within your grasp to be whoever you want to be, have whatever you want to have, and live however you want to live. But like an invisible plague, it tends to dominate your life, causing you to mask your true feelings, hide your ambitions, and avoid other people at all costs. No, I'm not talking about COVID. I'm talking about rejection. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Nicolette Moore with the This Is Coaching Show. And I'm joined today by two of my favorite coaches, Monica Riva and Marquis Navarro. Today, we're going to be discussing the dreaded topic of rejection. We're going to share real life examples of rejection that we've faced, how we've dealt with it, and how we coach our clients who are in fear of it. So let's start off with Monica. Monica, please quickly introduce yourself and let's dive in.
Hi, I am Monica. I live in Switzerland. I come from Norway, and I am money coach in a way. I help people deal with problems around money and how to reach a certain level. And rejection is a part of my life too. And it's an interesting topic that so many people need to actually look into. And I'm going to tell you about the story that I have just in a couple of minutes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. What's up, Marquis? Marquis, introduce yourself a little bit.
Excuse me. I'm taking out my coffee. Went down the wrong pipe. So I'm Marquis Navarro, sitting in awesome Utah. What can I say? Rejection is something that we all deal with. Excuse me. And it's something that we all have to get used to because rejection isn't a one-time thing. And you'll see when we start really getting into it. As for me, I am a transformational coach. Started out as an executive coach and decided that I wanted to go a different route. One could say it was because of a lot of rejection. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's glorious. And, as we get into it, we had a little bit of dialogue before hitting record. And one of the things Marquis brought up is, rejection is such a deep topic and you can cover so many different layers. With rejection, you can be rejected from, like your kid not wanting to give you a hug all the way to a big business deal. So there are a lot of ways that we experience rejection. There's a lot of facets to rejection. And so it's something that is really important, I believe, for us to talk about and share, because I think a lot of times we don't really articulate it. And it's something that truly does keep us from living the lives that we totally have the capacity to live. So, Monica, you said you had a story.
My story. I stuck with a childhood story because those are the ones that usually get stuck.
Yeah.
Now, I started out when I was about 10 or 11. I was delivering newspapers at the door. And they do that in Norway, the kids, in the afternoon. And they asked us, they didn't ask us, but they told us that we had to get more customers. So we had to go door to door and knock on the doors and ask if they wanted to subscribe to the newspaper. And I did. Started out confidently, and they said no. And no. And no. And they kept on saying no. And it just got worse and worse. And I felt so bad because I took it personally, because I wasn't prepared and I didn't know how to deal with it. And that stuck with me for such a long time. It's still today. I mean, sometimes I can trace back the rejection the feeling that I feel about rejection now. I sometimes can trace that back all the way to when I was small. So it's something that is hard to deal with us because you don't really talk about it. I mean, you don't want to tell people that you feel rejected, right? It doesn't feel good. I mean, you don't feel good at all when you do get rejected, and then to talk about it, it's even worse, right?
Yes, 100%. That's really amazing. Thank you for sharing that, because that brought up for me, I think a lot. I don't go back to my childhood that often, right? And I'm always very much thinking about, what happened this past week, or what have I been experiencing since I started a new career path, and having those kind of thoughts. But going back to my childhood, right at the same age, Monica, I had a growing little girl's body. I was turning into a woman from a little girl, right? And on the bus every day, driving home from school, I had a mob of kids, the cool kids in the back of the bus would
Right.
make fun of me. And they made fun of
No.
me for my body. And it was awful. And I would go home crying every day. And they would ask me to do like awful things, like take off my shirt and prove that I wasn't stuffing my bra. And, like really, really evil, mean things to do to
Poor
a kid.
thing.
And well, it messed with me so bad, and it caused me to go inward. I just retreated because I felt so unsafe. I was unsafe on the bus. My I felt like my parents didn't care. My mom would see me come home in tears, and she wouldn't do anything about it. And so that was like another form of rejection,
Right.
right? Like even my mom doesn't care that these people are like, making fun of me and tormenting me every day and still making me get on the bus. And the long-term effects of that caused me for many, many years of my life to feel like, there's something wrong with me and nobody will accept me for me. And it's like completely out of my control. Right. So that's like these rejections that we face even as little children have really long-term effects on us, and can be quite profound, and a lot of mental dialogue comes from it that we really should face so that we can get through. What about you, Marquis? Did you ever get made fun of for your growing
Like
body?
all the time. So I mean, yeah, I went through a lot of the kid stuff. For guys, it's always girls rejecting you, and but for me, I wasn't. I think I took maybe one too many young. So when I was in high school, I didn't pursue a lot of uh, female, companions, if you will. I wasn't shy, but I wasn't not shy at times too. So yeah, it definitely has a long term effect. Of course, once I joined the military, kind of came out of my shell, and you know, it was different. Not saying I was not getting rejected, because everyone gets rejected. I think I learned at a young age that I'm not going to die if someone says no or makes fun of me. And if anything, it taught me to roast people first. Um, so, but I do it in a way that isn't mean. I try to take any of my faults and turn them around and make them
Mm,
fun, right? Because everybody's got faults, right? And when it comes to rejection, they always gonna key in. You're gonna feel about it's got to be because of I'm too fat, or I'm too skinny, or my hair's too gray. Whatever it is,
mhm.
you're gonna sit there and play this game in your head. Why did I get rejected? Instead of sitting down and just saying, all right, that one didn't work out. That wasn't meant for me. Let's move on to the next. So rejection, I've been through it. I don't have any like huge stories, because they're all little stories, and they kind of made me who I am. If I was going to really go deep, and get real, personal, I'd probably say the first rejection I ever had was my father,
Mm,
because I've never met him. So
mm,
one could say, well, it made you kind of impersonal, and you know, I don't speak to family a lot. Like, it's because I just don't do that. It's because of the military. Moving from birth, the longest I lived anywhere is 7 years. So most people, they grew up with their besties and their frenemies, and then their enemies, right? They know where they're at. They know everything about them. And when they go back home to visit, they're going to run into them. Me, I go back home. I'm not gonna see anybody that I've known for years. So, that's just the way it is. But definitely rejection has played a big part in my life, but not in a negative way. Um, More of a positive now. It was negative when it happened, but kind of like the failure talk, at some point you gotta, should have get off the pot. I can't just stay there and grovel. So I chose to move on. All right, that one didn't work. Let's figure out if this one was going to work. So, and then business, same thing. How I went from an executive coach to transformational coach. Nobody wanted to talk to me as an executive coach. Oh, that's cool. And then they kind of do the, hey, Bob, and walk away. So, I went through that a lot. And then as soon as I stopped saying executive anything, I'm just a coach. And people were intrigued because I wasn't putting the people I wanted to work with into a bubble, and the rejection went down. It's still there, and as coaches, you get used to rejection. A lot. So you're like, all right, next.
I think about network marketers. I had my little stint in network marketing years ago, and one of the very first things they tell you is, hit up your warm market and make a list of 100 people and expect that only 10 out of 100 will be in, right? So you have to get through 90 no's, essentially, statistically speaking, you have to get through 90 no's to get to those 10 that will join your team or buy your products. And I think I admire that about the industry as far as helping the new team builders understands that they're not going to have all wins. And there are even programs that are like, go for the no, right? Like actively seek out rejection, because the more you're rejected, the closer you are to being accepted, right? I think it's interesting, Marquis, what you shared, because I wonder if there is a stronger inclination for women to hold
on. The same thing.
Yeah, to hold on to these feelings. We're sensitive and we're very, very emotional beings, and
making stories about the situation, make up stories about what it means.
Right.
Men don't do that.
Well, and probably not. Yeah.
I'll say this. I will say this. Men do. They think about it. What the difference between men and women is, of course, the emotional side. Men take rejection in a way that is, can be a little toxic. I'll be perfectly honest. If a man is rejected in a certain way once, most of them, they're going to be like, you know what? I'm not going to let that happen to me ever again. So they don't do it again. Right? They're like, I'm just never going to try. But they don't say anything. They hide it. That's not healthy. Women talk about it and, voice it, and they discuss it. That is healthy. And they get opinions from other women and men. That is healthy. Men aren't going to talk about it, for the most part. I'm not saying all men. This is not a blanket statement that I'm representing all men.
We don't represent all women either. So,
but from what I've seen, when it comes to men and rejection, they're gonna bottle it up and not talk about it. And then when they finally talk about it, it's that champagne cork, and it just comes out in a flood of like emotion, and it could be any kind of emotion. It's like weather in Texas. It's gonna be happy, sad, angry, and then back to sad. So yeah, men don't deal with things healthily on a regular basis when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I would say that we do talk about it just to ourselves. We do think about it just to ourselves. We just don't share it. Women, they share. That is the main difference, in my opinion.
But you don't seem to get that much affected by it either. I mean, I can.
In public, yes, you're absolutely correct. In public, it's not going to affect them, but it will. You'll see it in certain people that have fear of rejection. Their relationships would be different.
Right.
Like with men and women, they'll be like recluse. They don't want to invite people out because they don't want to hear no. or they're not going to ask that pretty lady to go to dinner because they don't want to hear no. It manifests itself in men, I think, differently than women. You'll have the
Oh, I instantly think about like jealousy. You know, the person who's jealous in a relationship,
right,
they're they're ultimately jealous because they're afraid, hey, what if I lose my partner, right? Because this guy that this guy that she's talking to, what if, you know, like just that insecurity that comes up, and the fear of rejection from somebody you care deeply about, but manifesting in jealousy, which, by the way, if you struggle with jealousy, is one of the most unattractive. I mean, it's just such an awful,
Mm.
awful personality trait, and it pushes people away. You know, like the last thing you should do is behave with jealousy in order to keep somebody and have
Yeah.
an authentic relationship with them. But that'll be another conversation for another day.
definitely.
So when especially, you know, now as adults, we're carrying all these things from our childhood. Some of us are badass like Marquis, and we can just shake it off, you know, do the Taylor Swift dance and just, you know, shake rejection off. Others of us have a little bit more work to do, you know. And like I just shared, I realize there are still some things that um, I carry with me from my childhood that are kind of like, they're tricky because I don't really think about them, but they've been so embedded in how I've shown up because I've been trying to protect myself my whole life. So it's like this constant revelation of, hey, this is something I need to pay attention to. Um, so when you guys work with people who, like Monica, you've got people who deal with money, and money's being such a, you know, it's like this I don't want to say tangible because a lot of it is very digital, right? So we're not literally handing money off, but it is this visual thing, right? You can see money coming and you can see money going, and it can mess with somebody. And um, do you feel like there's an element of rejection in somebody who's like trading, and the sensation of losing money? Is there any kind of
Oh
rejection
yeah,
in that?
yeah. Especially if you lose. I mean, you can lose on one trade. You can lose a couple of trades, but when you start losing several times, you start to take it personally. Even though the markets are neutral, there is nothing. They don't have anything against you. It's nothing personal. Things just happen, and you just react to what happens. But it's your reaction that is personal, and what you tell yourself about what it means about you that makes the whole difference. And the more you do that, the worse it gets. So when it gets really bad, you just have to step out of it and start paper trading again, like doing it virtually, and just you have to remove yourself completely from the situation. Otherwise, you won't ever get out of it. So sometimes you really need to step out of the whole thing and start again.
So would you say that that's like a form of self-rejection?
Yeah, I suppose self-rejection, but everything in a way is self-rejection because I don't think anybody rejects us really because they're mean. It's usually what we think that it means about us
Yeah.
as a person. So we actually are self-rejecting all the time, aren't we?
Painful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Like rejection is a perception. You know, it's not really a thing unless you make it a thing. And I can't remember who it was. I think it was Michael Neal. He had said that when it comes to feelings and emotion, it's like your brain, your subconscious makes something, a thought, and then your brain kind of focuses on it, and then it creates an emotion, and then your feelings run off of that. Same thing when it comes to rejection. Hearing any kind of rejection um, sparks something in your brain. It's a chemical reaction. just like anything in life, really. Some of us, I guess, get that feeling of, well, this is the most horrible feeling in the world. Others are like, eh. Um, and some get, either or. I think it depends on how invested you are in a
Yes.
particular thing.
100.
Yeah.
Whether it's business deal or financial transaction for the stocks,
Or
or
dating even, yeah. How
yeah,
much you're invested.
yeah, and or your marriage, right? Um, Unfortunately, I know a lot of people, in the being in the military again, stereotypical. They were longing for that rejection. They were just tired of each other. So, but they ended up, ending on great terms, and that particular rejection ended up being something better for both of them, right? So I think that again, we have to focus on as humans, or how are we going to take the rejection? We're going to take it as a good thing or a bad thing. And you can take, in my opinion, you can take every rejection as a good thing, because you have to be more optimistic about things, right? Some people don't believe in faith and it's things that are meant to be. I do, although I don't read my horoscope daily. I know that something's out there is meant for me to go a certain way, right? It's in the stars, one way or another. So over here reading tea leaves in my BAC.
So there's a common, it's not an acronym, but kind of like a 3-step approach to looking at rejection that I'd like to share quickly. It's something that I think I've shared with you guys in the past. I know it's something I share with clients that I work with. But it's called the 3 Ps of rejection. The 3 Ps of rejection being personal, pervasive, and permanent. So it kind of doesn't matter what degree we're talking about rejection, right? Whether it's within your family, your spouse, your children, your mom, your dad, those kind of relationships, or a big business deal that you're trying to acquire a partnership or get a contract. Personal, we take it personally. And Monica has said that phrase so many times, and it's so true, right? It so rings true. We take these rejections on so personally. Pervasive, as in we have this tendency, and maybe it's more strongly attached to women than men, but I would say that both feel the same way. Is that you have this sense that like this is always going to happen. I'm always going to be rejected.
Yeah.
And permanent being like, if I keep getting rejected, it's going to ruin my life, right? All like, the sky's falling, everything's just pure demise. So we stay safe. A lot of ways, we stay safe because we don't want to be rejected. I know in my circle, the people the people that I work with want to get exposure. They want to get out there. They want their business to be visible. They want their voice and their messages to be heard. And yet, the number one reason behind all of it that keeps them smaller is this fear of rejection. It's fear like, I'm not good enough. I don't have my eggs in a row. They're not going to like me. They're not going to care about me. Rejection, rejection, rejection. But what you can do when you look at your 3 Ps is ask yourself some questions, right? This is self-coaching. So asking yourself, can you be sure that the rejection that you feel is personal? Are you 100% positive that rejection is all about you? There's a book called The 4 Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz, and I think the first or second agreement is don't take anything personally. That is a pervasive issue, is taking things personally. Recognizing that we're all living in our own set of challenges, obstacles, beliefs. We all have our own things that we're dealing with. And so when we interact with each other, I'm in my reality. I'm in my own little Nicolette bubble, and I'm interacting with Marquis and Monica in their own little Monica bubble and Marquis
Right.
bubble. Right. And I have no idea, like, Did you just get into a fight with your spouse before we talked? Did, your son just pee all over your clothes before you got on the phone? Like, we have no idea what really is going on in somebody else's reality, but yet the energy that is exchanged, we take personally, and we really have got to learn not to do that. And then, like, as far as this is always going to happen to me, is that true? Have you really never ever had success? Like Marquis mentioned, having some interesting situations with girls dating as a young boy. It's like, but did he really always get rejected? I bet there were a lot of girls that were chasing after Marquis that he was not interested in. Right? Right? You know it. And so it's like, there are always ways that you can look at these situations and realize you've got a lot more success in that bucket than you're giving yourself credit for. But holding on to things and taking them personally really clouds your vision. And then asking yourself, is this perceived rejection really going to ruin everything? Is it really going to keep you from being able to have a business that you want? Is it really going to keep you from having the relationship that you want? Is your wife talking to a guy over there, or your girlfriend talking to a guy over there, really going to ruin your relationship? If that's the case, it's not a great relationship. Like, let's just be honest, okay? So these are questions we can ask ourselves in the midst of battling with those feelings of rejection that can help to put us in a better mindset so that we can, like Marquis and Taylor Swift, just shake it off.
Yeah. That's really amazing. That's a really good point.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the problem with the world today, as far as what you said is the self-coaching, and which is why we have this profession the way we do. And it's not that we have it perfect or we have it figured out. It's just more of we've recognized our own, you know, silliness in things and reactions, that we've kind of figured out how to start getting over things. It's not that we've gotten over it completely, because yes, I can shake it off, but there's a mental game that goes on with me personally when it comes to rejection, regardless of what it is, and where was that? I was at a seminar, and this guy's name's Sean Whalen, and one of the things he said, he's like, you can sit in your own shit for a while, but eventually you got to get up and wipe it, right? And like that was like the funniest and the best analogy I could I could hear, right? It makes so much sense, because what are you doing when like you first are rejected, or back to our last podcast, failure, rejection and failure are hand in hand, right? And typically one is perceived as the other and vice versa. But you gotta accept it for just dwell in that sorrow, that pit for a while. And I'm not talking like a year, like let's go a good 24 hours, 48 hours. All right. Oh, life sucks. Using an excuse to, drink a bottle of wine and eat a whole bucket of Haagen-Dazs. And then, that happened on Monday. On Wednesday, get up, put on a clean shirt, take a shower or something, and then get back to the grind. A lot of people, men in particular, they're just going to ignore it, and then it's going to come up later. And then it just messes up their whole psyche, because men don't know how to deal with emotions at all. And I'm one of them, So, yeah, it's just crazy how we are unable to coach ourselves at times, even as coaches.
Yes. And that brings me to a great, a great transition, and just talking about the benefit of having a coach to identify these things and to work these things out with. Because even though you can ask yourself difficult questions and hard questions to reframe and help you move past these issues, there are a lot of times that we're blocked, right? Like it wasn't really, I wasn't expecting to talk about my school days on the bus, right, on this conversation. But Monica brought something up, and it was kind of like a light bulb moment for me that I wasn't expecting to have. And those are the beautiful moments that coaching can bring about, is, just through the conversation and through the working out of things that you're like, I don't know why this is a problem for me. I don't know what is keeping me from being able to take this next step, and being able to work through those kind of issues, or identify those things that, you've got this rejection cloud hanging over your head that you're totally oblivious to. That's in my opinion, one of the benefits of having a coach. What about you guys? What do you see?
Yeah, because when you live in, as you said earlier, you live in your own bubble, and you don't really realize what goes on outside of the bubble, and you just see things through your own glasses. The color of the glasses you have on, that's the world you see, and you make up meanings about it based upon your own little bubble. So having a coach to talk to and actually share your vision of the world, and actually see it from the outside, makes the whole difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I think having somebody basically call you out or ask you, do you realize you're doing this or X, Y, and Z, is an important thing. And it's definitely helpful. It's very difficult to do as a coach, because you're trying to get this person on the right track, but sometimes you do have to call people out. Like, you're being ridiculous. You're not this person that you're telling yourself you are. Why? Where did this come from? And then it gets into the, tell me about your mother. And we're not psychologists, but it's pretty much how it goes down a lot of times. But I've seen it myself in the clients I work with. What they bring to you as what they think is their issue, and you start digging in and asking questions and really just unpacking everything, as they say, it turns out to be something completely different. And they always get, that big breath. So my former career in law enforcement, interviews is the same thing. The interviews for criminals, when you interview a criminal, as soon as they break and they tell the truth, exact same thing when you're dealing with a client. When you're dealing with a client, it's like, oh, I just broke them. All right, now let's get back, let's get on the right track. And it does. It's awesome. And I've had the same when I've worked with a coach on a volunteer, like working with you ladies. I don't know how many times we've been in a session, doing a practice coach or a coaching session, and turns into a real coaching session. And I'm like, oh man. So yeah, the benefits are endless when it comes to working with a coach, for anybody, coaches included. Yeah,
because you can't talk about a lot of things to your best friends. They probably won't see it from the outside and be able to help you the same way as a coach can.
100%. I always say, like, when you have, I almost don't like talking to my friends about meaningful things anymore. Because the conversations can be so shallow. They're so, like, your friends just want to coddle you. They want to, boost your self-esteem and make you feel better. And they want to, cheer for you and like reaffirm what you're saying about something. And it's like, it seems to be like, well, that's sweet. That's what a friend should do. But in all honesty, how does that challenge you to look at life differently and improve how you're interacting with it? And so that's why I love coaching, because I love being challenged. I love being in the situation where somebody's like, I'm seeing a pattern and it's not so good. And I'm like, oh shit. there we go again.
The great thing about a coach is that even though you might feel that the coach is saying something, it's not a rejection. The coach is always there for you.
Right. And that's the great thing about it, is like, that this person, and it is, like Marquis said, it's really uncomfortable as a coach to call somebody out, because you don't you don't want to ruffle feathers or push anybody away, but it's very important that we identify these things for our clients in order to help them, grow. And so it's like, why are you acting the fool? I have to call you out now, But of course you do it in a very loving, professional, gentle way. Well, depending on the kind of coach you are, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Might be some knife hands and an F-bomb in there sometimes. But, it's all coming from a place of, that funny word that men don't like to say, love. So, it's when you're working with a client, another reason why it's uncomfortable is, as a coach, you get scared they're going to say, all right, I'm done with you. So that
you don't get rejected.
Yeah, like, crap, I got to drink my own Kool-Aid here. But I've learned that if that's the case, then they're not looking for a coach. They're looking for a yes man or a yes woman. They're looking for somebody to just tell them what they want to hear instead of what they need to hear. And I'm not that kind of coach. And I know you two aren't either. I've seen you in action. So when I go for it, though, I feel the sweat beating up on me when I'm about to really get in. I'm like, crap, this is going to get weird. Take a deep breath. Like, I do this whole mental workout because we're looking at each other. I got a duck in a pond, right? Mm-hmm. I just go for it. And then fingers crossed, they don't see it, but so yeah, I love coaching. I'm actually glad I got into the profession. It is very rewarding and fun, and stressful at times because you want the best for your client. And I'm sure we could do a whole nother podcast on when you're too vested in the client goals more than they are.
100%.
Yeah. So, man.
Love it. Well, guys, this has been incredible. Lots of value shared here. And I hope that for the audience, it's been beneficial for you to listen in on. If at any point you have any questions for us, you want to ask something specific about your situation or vague, but don't be too vague because it's hard to answer. But if you want any feedback on a situation, you have any questions for us, email us at thisiscoachingshow@gmail.com. We'd be happy to reply to you. And hey, if you even want to get coached on air, we'd be happy to have you too.
Yeah,
this is a lot of fun, and we're all about transformation and helping those around us to just get over their bullshit, really, and move on to living a more empowered life. So I think I can speak for all of us in saying that that's really what we want to see. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. This is coachingshow@gmail.com. Do y'all have any last closing remarks?
Yeah, real quick. Just for those of you that do email in, just know that all emails are kept confidential between the three of us. Nobody else will see it. We're not going to post it up on Facebook. Nothing. That is all between us because the coaching relationship is a confidential relationship unless you come on saying, hey, I'd love to jump on your show and go through a coaching session, which would be beneficial for anybody that decided to do it.
And beneficial for other people as well that might be going through the same thing.
So, really enjoyed the time with you guys today. So, thanks.
Me too.
All right. Until next time. See ya.
See ya.